Hey guys, this is Dardamos, and welcome back to another national expansion. In the previous one, I finished Ind, and in this one, I'm going to move on to Naba, which I initially despised. I've been playing with this nation, and to say the least, I did not enjoy it. I just was the glamour that they've got. Let me see if I can find it. This Iron Variant vulnerability scares me quite a bit because damage, your main source of not dying is protection, and iron vulnerability did not make me very happy. But the more I looked at this nation, the more that I started to really like it. It's got a lot of very unique aspects to it, and it's got one of the most interesting expansions that I have. Now I'm going to be moving to a new format, which will be a little bit more focused on what the nation is and how you're going to get through your first 12 turns and be prepared to go into that second year, and more specifically to get into your mid game, which should happen after the second year. The first thing that you're going to need for any good nation is a research monkey. Your research monkey will have it'll be cheaper than 10 gold for every research point. And if you see this Karib here, he comes pretty close to my goal of 10 gold per research point. He's not exactly there though. Also, in addition, he's pretty CP heavy. You only get 7 research points for your mage right here. So it's not you're not going to be getting big numbers of research, but it's going to be pretty efficient. And what's also very nice about these guys is that they're sacred. So their upkeep cost is 32 per year, so it's, what, 3 gold, a little less than 3 gold per month. So it's pretty cheap to get these guys pumped out. If you have a lot of forts, they're very efficient. But what really shines about Naba is their non-fort province, Hermit Sahirs. Now, one thing I want to note before we go any farther is that their labs are very cheap at 250 gold each. That's half the cost of a lab. So the fact that these guys are 4 recruitment points, it's not that big of a deal because you have half cost labs. Now the downside is you don't get these if you build a fort there, but that's kind of okay, and you're going to see why later in one of the strategies that I have for a pretender. What's interesting that we can do about these with these guys is that, like, you see these research points. It's 13 for 125 gold, which puts them just under my 10 gold per point. Not only that, but they've got pretty decent paths for a battle mage, meaning that you can kind of play with them where you can take them from the labs and put them into combat. The downside of these guys is that if you want them to be protected and not get hit by raiders, you're going to have to spend at least 1 turn moving them into a fort, if not more. They are stealthy, so you can, move them stealthily, or if you think you're going to get raided, you can keep them in the province stealth. They can also move around with your army stealth. But what's another thing that's really interesting about it is that they got the astral, so you can plug them into a communion. Now, one of the things that I find very important about researchers is that they have the ability to get the research items. And that's what makes these little crappy guys that are very CP intensive and turns them into a really good chassis. And what we find is that if we put a feather, a quill, a skull, or a lantern on this guy, he's got 2 accessory points. This guy that, 7 research point in this huge expensive 500 gold unit, they have the same number of miscellaneous spots. So you can, instead of buying mages or buying research mages, you can plug in air gems and fire gems and death gems into making research, which I find to be much more efficient. You get your mages out there fighting while your gems do the researching. These guys have the access just through the Hermit Sahirs, but I'm going to do the normal Sahirs because they're a little bit easier to recruit, of getting your lanterns and your feathers. Now, they don't have easy access. In fact, I don't think they have any death access whatsoever, which leads, which is okay because the skulls, normally you don't want to spend your death gems on skulls. There's a million other things you can spend death gems on. And skulls are not really one of them. They're normally your backup and your emergency, like your emergency research item. Lanterns are by far the best, but they take construction 6. Feathers are second place, and they only take construction 2. So one of my goals would probably be to construction 2, just to get myself a couple feathers out. Your initial gem income will allow you to get a couple feathers out, and you'll have a nice supply of fire. Now, one thing I do want to say about lanterns, and we'll find out later, is that you're going to have probably quite a bit to spend your fire gems on, or we're gonna spend a lot of for our fire gems. Um, Communions. Now, I told you that they could plug themselves into communions pretty easy, and this is going to be your communion slave right here. Very expensive, not very gold efficient, or sorry, research efficient. They are sacred, so keeping one or two around for 4 gold per month is not a terrible thing. And getting 2 or 4 of these guys and boosting your paths by either 1 or 2 is not too terrible. But this is definitely not something where you're going to be doing these mega communions of 8 slaves or 16 slaves, unless maybe late in the game, which is beyond the scope of this video. So 2 to 4 of these guys will let you get some pretty nice spells off if you can't get them already, but your paths are pretty high. They will allow you into some higher earth access, something like Legions of Steel, and that may be worth it. Strength of Giants would be another one that would be really good as well. The next thing is your battle mages, which are going to be your Sahirs, are going to be your Malikas, and what I think is going to be more than likely are your Hermit Sahirs. You're going to be getting tons of these guys if you can afford the labs. So and they're very very efficient, and I would probably be more than willing to do a low fort where you don't get many forts. The way you get your forts are through your early wars, and you're going to be using your emirs are not the greatest. So what I said my battle mages were my Sahirs, my Malikas. Now the downside is, or sorry, let me just. I've got an Excel sheet that I'm actually using and trying to be efficient with this. So let's look at the Sahirs. High gold cost, but gold per turn is pretty low. It's 160 gold per turn, and it's going to take you 2 turns. So you can kind of get them out without breaking the bank. They're not really thuggable, but they're not terrible for thugging. They've got glamour. They've got really good paths for a thug. Just these are the exact paths that you want for thugging. It would be nice if you could get death, but that astral lets you do body ethereal, which is not bad at all. It's not the greatest though because they've got low hit points. They can cloud trapeze, which is very nice, and they have the ability to spam out fire elementals, air elementals, and earth elementals, all of which aren't too bad. In addition, we've already talked about doing Conjuration as one of our research goals, or maybe we haven't yet. It's gonna be for the summons, and so Conjuration really starts to form up as our initial research goal. In addition, because we're going air for the quills, we can move up to construction 3, which is an easy and pretty low research goal to be able to get ourselves Legions of Steel, which will work really well with our chaff. And what's going to move into our chaff, or which will end up moving us into our chaff. The first thing I want to note is the Jan Guard, which is an expensive-ish chassis that's size 3. Is stealthy, which is kind of nice, and for some reason, and I could be wrong on this, it reminds me a lot of a white centaur or an elf. High defense, little bit larger size, decent protection, pretty good strength, and this has the ability to, I don't want to say kill giants, but it'll hold off most rushes. The attack is not bad, but what this really screams is it needs a little bit more. And the little bit more kind of was within the elite soldier. It has a little bit more strength. It has a little bit more damage. I think it has a little bit more protection. Yeah, a little bit more protection. But it's only a little bit more. It's not it's not a sacred worthy chassis, but it's not decent gold. So what I think I'm trying to get across is that this is a decent enough uh, unit for expansion, and then you can probably put a Rainbow Bless onto this that, any points that you have left over on your Pretender. So both strategies, I believe, are very, very legitimate. While I'm talking about these elite soldiers, which are the units that I will be using for expansion, I do want to note, what was it, that they have a pretty decent siege strength. They're 2.6. My goal is 1 siege strength per 10 gold, and it's a little bit. I want to say it's. Why does it say that it's actually? Oh, it's a little bit worse than that. Yeah, I take it back. These things are pretty bad for the siege strength. So we're probably not going to be we're probably going to want an alternative. Well, you're going to be using a lot of these, and we'll talk about the Nebians later. These are absolutely terrible for siege strength. Um, we'll want to be using these Nebian Desert Warriors for our chaff. They end up being 8 gold for 1 siege strength, which is pretty cheap, all things considering. There are definitely better chaff out there. But these guys aren't bad because they've got a short bow that they'll just sit on the side and kind of, pew pew instead of going in and trying to suicide themselves. Kind of nice. They're undisciplined, which makes them a very, very bad patroller if we do want to use them for blood hunting, but it's not a very big blood nation anyways. We will not be using these guys until we want to siege down a castle or a fort or some other enemy that we know that we've got a winning solution, that either our opponent is busy dealing with somebody else, or we feel that we're overwhelming with our strength. The last guy that I want to talk about is the Nebian Camel Riders, and I don't really want to go too much into depth, except to note that their gold cost is 22 gold, which seems really expensive. They've got a really good composite bow. 11 piercing damage is almost the level of it's almost the level of crossbows, I'd say. Not because they've got the armor piercing, but because the piercing does a quarter, like takes off a quarter of their protection, and 11 damage is a lot of damage. So what it ends up doing is that this will pretty much one shot a 8 to 7 hit point unit, I want to say. Maybe less than that, but it's going to deal serious damage to 10 protection units, which is pretty good. But that's not why these guys are great. The reason these guys are great is because of this little pro right here. And I'm going to go over that later. So we've looked at the mages, we've looked at the units. Let's move on to the actual nation itself. The first thing I want to do is push the us button and talk about our magic schools. My first goal is going to be to run down Conjuration to 5. I haven't looked at these Jins. I don't think they're very good. A lot of their commanders are things that you've already got. They're ethereal, which, I mean, I guess that's nice, but they're low HP. They're fire 2, air 2-ish, give or take 1 or 2. And they're not really worth it until you get really far down, which, again, is outside the scope of this video. But what is within the scope of this video are these Jin Warriors. These Jin Warriors, you get 3 of them for 15 fire gems. These are sacred units that are ethereal. So they're sacred and ethereal, which is a huge deal. They've got magic weapons, so you don't have to take magic weapons, and they kind of fit within the general strategy of what you're going to be doing with our expansion. You'll see it later. And that expansion strategy, I don't know if I'll be taking it into the mid game, but it doesn't hurt to have a transitional period. The reason I'm going to Conjuration 5, and I would even without these Jin Warriors, is that I can summon fire elementals, I can summon, where is it? I can summon earth elementals, I can summon air elementals, I'm able to get my phoenix power, I'm able to get my earth power, and it's something, especially earth power, if you want to go into construction 3, is going to be, it saves you on reinvigoration, and it also lets you get a higher earth level. construction is going to hit us with Legions of Steel and air quills. I am a big fan of research items. I think that they are key to this game, and they're the difference between the difference between a good player and a great player are your ability to get your research high quickly and still be able to put mages out there. So if you want a lot of mages on the field and still have high research, you're going to need magic items and you're going to need efficient mages. You're also, ideally going to have a good research mage that also doubles as a battle mage, which this nation luckily has. Moving on to another, if I got beyond this, I know that there are some blood mages. I don't particularly like them. The Shaitan is an amazing mage. I think it is wonderful. It's cheaper by 4 than the vampires. It's got the same blood level, and it's a level sooner. However, you don't have a lot of very good options for blood magic unless you want to tailor your pretender towards that, which is an option, but it means that you're going to have to be working, unless you want blood post 36, which is definitely a viable option. If you want it before turn 36, you're going to have to take a dormant with the goal of specifically blood hunting. I don't think that's really going to be seen in the mid game. However, I still think you should put some blood into your blood scales because it's an option for later game. It lets you transition into a strong late game blood, and you've already got astral, so you've got the ability to get farther into the late game. Albeit your astral is very light, S1 at max. Instead, after Conjuration Construction, I would be moving into. Sorry, I gotta look at my sheet. Evocation 4 has some pretty cool spells. You've got your standard fireballs and fire darts and stuff like that, but you've also got Scorching Wind. Scorching Wind is a DRN verse 22. That means This is like. I think I see 24 to 26 on a lot of super combatants. This is actually usable pretty consistently against super combatants. In 2d8 worth of fatigue, you're looking at an average of 8 fatigue per turn, which you're reaching rigor mortis levels, which is absolutely amazing. This spell is a lot more powerful than I think it's a very powerful spell. And it's very easy to spam. I mean, Air 2, Fire 1 is not that difficult to get to. The fact that it's at Evo 4 is pretty good. And once you cast it on somebody, you get it happens every single turn. They are affected for the rest of the battle. So as they're spamming this across the battlefield, you're going to put them to sleep. And because your units are resistant to heat, which is, I think they've got like fire 5, which means they negate 10 heat fatigue per turn. And they're also, a lot of them have wasteland survival. They don't, even if they have this, it doesn't affect them. So it kind of works like Alm's Iron Blizzard, which it can hit your troops, but you don't care because you've got so much protection that it normally doesn't hurt you very much, or if it does, it hurts them more. So very, very solid spell. This one, again, is an anti-super combatant. This does 45 fire damage. I have never seen any unit with 45 fire damage. It also is armor piercing, so they could do fire resist plus armor, but even then, it's huge. And it also, by the way, it does fatigue. So this is an anti super combatant spell. So you can move into Evo 6, but I don't think you're gonna get there by the time it's until like year 3 about. I also think that Construction 6 is a viable option, but you're probably going to want to be using those fire gems for other things. That being said, this is the one nation that I think that may want to move into enchanting for, let me see it real quick. Eternal Pyre is not a bad idea. I don't know how you're going to save up 80 fire gems, though. It would be worth it. Trading fire gems for other gems is a very good, profitable way of getting gems. I would not be opposed, especially nature gems, for example, where you could trade maybe 3 fire gems for every 2 nature, or 2 death is another one where you give them death and they give you 3 fire. Something where a lot of people don't really like their fire gems. They're not really important until lanterns, and some nations like them, but a lot of nations don't like their fire gems. So you can probably trade gems for the fire gems that you really need, and it kind of gives you a leg up. Let's move on to pretenders real quick. Now, the pretender that I would be using, you've got 3 options that I see that are viable. You go awake for some sort of bless that you need, like an incarnate bless. You go dormant for a dormant surprise, something where you're trying to get a couple more points, and maybe that you're afraid of a rush, but you still want some scales. And then the other option is the imprisoned scales. Now, because you can do labs everywhere for really cheap, an option is to get maybe something that has astral. I did not prepare for this. I was hoping for a mono. But something where you could get, like, high astral, and jump it around from place to place would be really, really cool. It would be very, very defensive, and it would keep your territory fairly under control. Some big old army comes in, you just drop one of these guys on top of his head, and you just go to town. Wow, this actually looks better than the. I haven't really looked at these new ones yet. But this looks mono worthy. High protection. It doesn't have the resistance affliction, but it is an innate caster with a bunch of the resistances. And so this is what I'd be looking at right here. Even if I go with scales, which is what I'd probably go with. These have 40, 40. Is there anything that has less than 40? No. This is an option because it's got the blood searcher, but I don't know if I want to go that route. That's actually pretty good right there. But I do want. This is probably maybe what I want to do. Like a statue of beginnings, get enough to be able to teleport, and then just rainbow it up. Now let's talk about our scales. Misfortune is perfectly fine because you do have let's see, you have Fortune Teller 5 on all of your mages, which should be able to level or to lessen the blow of your of bad events. Grow 3 is absolutely necessary because of the income. You definitely want to pump this income as high as you want, or as high as you possibly can. Heat 3 is a no-brainer because it will keep it around Heat 3 the whole year, and it's the most efficient money-wise scale to take is to move it up to Heat 3. To me, this is a free 40 points. You absolutely need resources for your troops, but at the same time, a little bit of turmoil is okay. I would definitely want something like Magic 3 to make my efficient mages more efficient. Now, I haven't played around with this, and this is where it kind of takes a little homework on your end, because I haven't made, my exact pretender. I haven't made my exact scales. I would play around with this, see what scales you absolutely need. I will show you going in a little bit of what I would do, but I can't promise you that that's what I would do within a game. Can I? Nope. Okay, so normally what I like to do, because like I said, it was missing a little bit of everything. I need a little bit of attack. Um, Maybe just some resistances would be really nice. In fact, I might even want to just go full. I don't need fire resistance at all. So something like this, because your summons already have fire resistance. They're missing shock and cold resistant, and then maybe a little bit of strength of the earth, or maybe a little bit of reinvigoration. I did not look at the commanders that are the higher end commanders, but they could really use a bit of reinvigoration, but strength never hurts either. Astral, without a doubt, I would go with not magic weapon. Oh no, it did magic resist. Definitely want that magic resist. Now, one thing that I would look into, and that I'm not spending a lot of time looking at, what pretender chassis, because I think that is something that is more player. Oh, what am I doing? I should be going imprisoned. Is that I would definitely go with a blood build. And the nice thing is that you need blood and fire rather than blood and death. So you can pretty much skip death, which is very weird. I feel like you always need death. But Blood Surge is not the worst. Yeah, we'll do Blood Surge. So this is probably what I would be doing, something like this, where, a little bit of misfortune isn't the worst thing in the world. Um, and then, yep, that works. The nice thing is you don't need a high Dominion because I'm not going to be, recruiting those, the Sacreds. So we're going to use this build, even though it's not the best build. You get the idea that I'm looking for a lot of resist, that I don't, the turmoil is okay. You need a bit of production. The heat scale is, 3 is the way to go. You want gold, in growth is the #1 way to get gold. Good for research, and you've got things to mitigate your misfortune. Now you can play with these up and down knowing those things. So I want to get this within 30 minutes, so we're kind of cutting it a little bit close. We're going to call this Dardamos's Folly, because I have a feeling that this is going to go very poorly, because the way that this works is that after I, sound all intelligent and puff up my ego quite a bit, that I will fail in this absolutely, and I will have to redo this entire video because I will have, like, demons and foul spawn, or not the foul spawn, yeah, heavy cavalry and stuff like that. So what I want to do is not those guys. I mean, it was not the worst. No, I want to make a bunch of these Nebian Camel Riders. In fact, I might just go all out like this. My initial army is not terrible. I've got 6 of these guys. I've got a crap ton of these guys. The first time I tested this looked really good. A 17-point damage. I mean, that's going to get through the protection without a problem on anything. I don't exactly know why it didn't work out. Maybe they just died so quickly. I mean, robes are not the best thing to stop swords, or javelins, or arrows, or anything. So they're kind of a glass cannon. It just didn't work out. Instead, what worked out is I put these guys on the front line, and I want them to actually attack. So I don't particularly like these guys that have javelins. I don't like javelins. I don't know what it is. It's just not my style, maybe. But we didn't go with the javelineers. I want them to go in and start punching things. And there's a reason for this. And I want to show this off. And I know that it might get a little bit boring with my explanation, so I apologize in advance. Now, the eventual goal will be to go site searching with either these guys or these guys. I probably will go with the one that I can afford first. Until that happens, I just want to use one of these guys. And there's a secondary reason that I will be going, that I'll be making the cheapest mage that I can possibly make. And we'll see that in the next turn. Let me turn this guy into a prophet. Oh, I cannot rename. Oh, it's going to have to start all over again. That's it. Restarting the video. Okay, yes. So we have a bunch of heavy infantry, militias and archers, and militia and archers. Now, normally I would be going probably in this one just to make sure I didn't lose anybody, but I don't think I'm going to lose anybody anyways, and I'm going to show you guys why. And this is why these guys are so utterly, I don't want to say broken, but amazing. I absolutely love this nation. I'm going to set these guys to hold an attack the closest. I'm going to send this guy to spells because he'll probably courage up guys and then start blessing. If I wanted to be specific, and why not? Let's be very specific. Word of Power. Yeah, oh man, Word of Power is a really good one too. I really like that. 10 damage. It is MRN, but it paralyzes them. That's pretty cool. And then I'm going to tell them to... I don't need the courage on these guys. 60 morale. I want to send these guys a little bit back so that they'll fire their bows after these guys... Oh, no, they're going to be holding an attack. So we're going to send these guys back and try to have them live as long as they can. If they live long, they'll deal damage more likely. And these guys are the ones that we're going to be looking at most specifically. So let's move on to the heavy infantry, and we're going to sneak this guy in as well. At this point, I'm going to be making as many of those guys that I can, and then maybe, okay, I want 5 of these guys, and then as many of these guys as I can possibly get. Let's sneak in a Sahir, and then we will start having him go forth and do site searching as soon as possible. Actually, let's just put him on wait and then move on to the next turn. Okay, so in order to understand how this works, you have to understand what a Zak is. Now, some of you guys, this might be a bit, what's the word? You might know this already. But the way a Zak works is that the areas around the unit act as a Zak. Because this is square and not your hex. I kind of hexes. I'm not going to go into my spiel about how hexes beat squares, but the Zaks are the immediate units or the immediate squares around the unit. If there is another unit within this area, that unit will sticky. It will not move until that other unit is destroyed. It's very important to know this in Dominions. I guess now I didn't realize this mechanic until I started testing this out. I think I intuitively knew it, but the idea is that if you can get a guy here, it will sticky these 2 guys, and the other 2 guys will go forward, and all of a sudden their troops will be separated. So let's look and see what happens. Okay, so knowing our rules for zone of control, which units are stickied? These units are stickied. These archers are going to go into melee. I've just taken out every one of their archers. These guys are going to sit here killing this dude, and these 4 squares are stickied. Which units are not stickied? Well, these guys don't matter because they're too far back or they're already out of the combat. These guys are not stickied. What's going to end up happening, and we're going to watch this going forward, is that these 4 guys are going to go forward, and they're going to hit my main line. And what we've done is we have created a numbers disadvantage, where we have gone forward and we have these guys punching the crud out of a small number of troops, and whereas normally giants get surrounded, instead of them surrounding us, we are now surrounding them. These guys, for some reason, I think it's their high defense skill, they don't ever get hit. They've got a high attack, meaning they're probably going to hit, but a low damage. They can actually kill things. But if you watch, we're just going to eat these guys one after another, and just like that, with absolutely no risk whatsoever, I never felt once that there was going to be anybody that died. These crows are amazing. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to construct a lab unless I cannot afford the troops that I need. I need I need 5 of these guys. I kind of like 5 of them for some reason, even though 6 would probably be better. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to recruit one of these guys, and then just one of these guys. And this is going to be my next unit leader. So it'll give me another turn to pump out a bunch more troops. And then we're going to move this guy into here. Do we have enough? No, we don't. Get rid of one of these guys. Bring up the defense by 1, and yeah, that's all we can do. Okay, so once again, this has the ability to surround and kill maybe one of my giants because I just don't have a lot of them. And instead, okay, so that didn't work out as well. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, now we're getting into a point where we can at least, we might get a little bit surrounded. Nope, we didn't get surrounded at all. Their line hit our line. They retreat, and just like that, we take very little damage. The only way we're going to lose anybody is through a lucky hit. Okay, one exception to this is Barbarians, if I remember correctly. I don't want to fail expand here, So I'm not going to test my theory, but I think if I remember correctly, the Barbarians just eat everything. It doesn't work out well, and I don't remember why. Okay. We have gotten our first Quabil. He's an Astro, which is absolutely wonderful. I'm gonna attack this guy along. We're going to increase that to 6, move this guy into here, make another leader. And he's going to be taking the roundabout trip. One of these guys, we're going to make one of those guys, and a bunch of these. Okay, and just like that, I've gotten 8 of that'll be a solid expansion party. When this guy comes in, he'll pick up those guys, and then we'll start expanding with 2 expansion parties on turn 5, and we'll slowly be able to get the resources to be putting out an expansion party every single turn, and these expansion parties are hella safe. Even if you run into somebody else, there's a high chance that you will probably win, or at least deal a bunch of damage. So once again, is this worth watching? Probably not. And again, we've lost nobody. Bring it up to 6. Oh, hey, this is actually going to be a fun group of guys. Okay, so you go there, and we're going to send this guy here. I'm not exactly sure how to do this because... Oh, that's right. Hold and attack, flyers, hold and fire. It's really, really weird how these guys work because it's Zots, and Zots are just, they're always kind of a little dangerous because you don't want your leader to die. So we'll put him here and hope that he doesn't, die. Okay, so this guy is going to pick up his 2 dudes, move into here. We can recruit one of these guys. And these, like I said, these takes 4 turns to recruit, so it's going to take a little while. The Caribs are very much not worth it. In my opinion, you need to get a temple, which makes them highly, super expensive. I've gone over the 30 minutes. Darn it. Okay, so we'll do 3 minutes real quick. And what was my research goals again? Conjuration 5. I don't think I'm going to get there by turn 12 at all. Okay, sadly, we are not going to be able to make another lab here, but oh well, it happens. And what's nice is that, like, the 2 type of research things that you're looking for are built in, like, you're going to be seeing them, and Fire 2 and Air 2 are not terrible. 3's your better bet, like Fire 3 or Air 3, but, we'll live with what we got. And see that we found 2 sites, which is absolutely wonderful. We lost 1 Camel Rider, which isn't too bad with as many Zots as there were. And once again, we've lost nothing. So I think at this point, you guys can see the general idea of how to expand. We have another expansion party coming in next turn, which will be given another... Oh my goodness, I can make a ton of these guys now. And what you'll be seeing is you'll be moving more away from the Camel Riders and more towards the elite soldiers at your base, because you'll be able to pick up a bunch of these guys from your local territories. 2 there, 3 there, and you're going to be wanting to continue to make these sheiks because these are your expansion commanders, which lets you make more mages back at your base. Very, very awesome. Oh, that's one thing I do want to show real quick. And let me show this off before the end of this episode. And I'm just gonna do this really quickly. Heavy cavalry, because this is a very important part of. This is another one of the things that are really, really good. Oops. Oh man, I kind of screwed that up. Okay. Now, you might say, like, oh, this is not a big deal. This is just absolutely normal. No, because these lances only get charge bonus for the very first strike. This weapon can only be used once in each battle. we have officially gotten rid of the lance, the biggest damage with piercing damage on the heavy cavalry, and it was wasted on a bird. That means these guys are super, like they're gonna do 0 damage, and as a result, we took on 8 heavy cavalry without taking any losses. Not too shabby. I hope you guys enjoyed this national expand. Let me know now that I'm out of the expansion, or out of the new nations, what you would like to see on the next national expansion. I would like to stay with this new format, but let me know how you like it, where I go through the mages, the troops, the research goals, or if you would just like me to stay with what I did before, which is, just do the expand and see it all the way to turn 12. We were only able to make it to turn 7 with this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this national expand, and I'll see you guys hopefully in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.